Hello everyone, Emma Power here, and today we're going to be looking at Giratina. This is a deck that I feel I've mentioned so much on this channel, but I've never got around to covering it as a deck. So just a quick overview of Giratina and why this deck is supposed to be really strong is that it has easy 1-hit KOs on VSTARs with Lost Impact, doing 280, but of course it requires us to put 2 energy cards from this Pokemon into Lost Zone. Well, I'll say this Pokemon, you can actually use any Pokemon, but the majority of times you'll probably end up just moving them off Giratina, but you can use other Pokemon to move energy off for Lost Impact, which is pretty good. You can also 1-hit KO VMAX with Hawlucha and Belt, so if your opponent is playing a tanky VMAX deck, or they're like putting big charms on their V-Stars to stay out of range of Lost Impact, you can actually play choice belts and stuff to just reach that bit higher with 310 damage output, which is frankly ludicrous. You can also do 1-hit KOs with your V-Star power, Star Requiem. So if you're not playing the Arceus variant, then if you have 10 or more cards in your Lost Zone, which is pretty easy to do, your opponent's active Pokemon is now knocked out. So this is obviously like a late game finisher move that can just easily 1-hit KO any bulky Pokemon such as Duraludon, free of charge, and it's just for 2 energy as well, so it can be easily used with Mirage Gate, I should say. So Mirage Gate is like effectively the core of this deck and why it's able to be successful. So on top of this, Giratina V has actually built-in Shred, does 160 for 3, so even a Miltank with a Cape of Toughness will not be able to survive it. You're not playing any Splash Energy, so Duraludon isn't anything to worry about. You don't have any weakness because you're a Dragon type. You also have 280 HP, so you're naturally on the big end of V-Stars, and this makes a whole lot of difference against stuff like Palkia, and also just anything that can hit around 260, 270 over the course of 2 hits, such as the new Aerodactyl. So having 280 is really going to help you out in a lot of situations. And the deck also has a ton of one prize options, such as Cramorant Sableye that we'll get into. So it's not as if you're just like walled out the game and forced to just attack with, V-Stars and whatever. You can actually use one prize Pokemon. Just looking at the support Pokemon, we have Giratina V, which has an amazing attack, Abyss Seeker, that allows us to look at the top 4 cards of our deck, put 2 of them into our hand, and the other cards into a Lost Zone. So ideally, what we want to do is use a couple of Comfrey every turn to look at the top 2 cards of our deck. We choose one card, put in a Lost Zone, and obviously if you do this on the first turn, going second, you can use 1 or 2 Comfreys and then switch into Giratina and use Abyss Seeker. And then if you combine this with supporters like, the Colorless Experiment over here, says look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put 3 of them into your hand, put the other cards into the Lost Zone. So Colorless Experiment, pretty good supported card. And then, of course, Abyss Seeker could finish the turn and potentially put the acquired cards into Lost Zone so we can use Mirage Gate. Then, of course, it has the attack Shred that allows us to go through Miltanks. And also just having 220 hit points is just on the high end for most Evolving Vs, so we don't usually see them at that high, so having 220 is obviously really good as well. Cramorant is just another one prizer we can take advantage of. Has 110 HP, which is not too shabby, but the amazing thing about Cramorant has the ability Lost Supply, that says if you have 4 more cards in your Lost Zone, ignore all energy in this Pokemon's attack cost. So not only is this a really easy to use, easy one prizer, just throw out 110 whenever you feel like it, it means that you don't have to rely on Giratina's main attack, because there's only so many times we can actually put 2 energy from our Pokemon into the Lost Zone before we just essentially run out of energy. So having Cramorant in the deck allows us to just, use, Conniving Spit to do 110, followed up from 280, or use multiple Conniving Spits with Choice Belt after we've used Comfrey once or twice in conjunction with Colorless Experiment. So other support Pokemon include Banette that we'll see in 1 or 2 of the lists. Banette has this amazing ability, Puppet Memorial. It says once during a turn, you may choose a supporter card from your discard pile, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, put this Pokemon into a Lost Zone. Discard all other cards attached to this Pokemon. So it's not the worst ability in the world because it will essentially act as a supporter recovery. So what we can do is send Banette to a Lost Zone, pick up Colorless Experiment, and then play Colorless Experiment to put 2 more cards in the Lost Zone from the top 5 cards of our deck. So we can essentially just use that turn to put 3 cards in the Lost Zone minimum. And assuming we've played Colorless Experiment last turn to put additional 2, then we're up to 5 now. And then assuming we've done some Comfreys, at least 2 Comfreys, and that's 7, which is perfect amount for Mirage Gate. So easy to see why Banette would be a good inclusion in the Lost Zone deck. Drapion V is just like a massive utility attacker, not really taking advantage of a Lost Zone in any way, shape, or form, but essentially for a single colorless energy, or no energy at all sometimes, can just one-hit KO a Mew VMAX, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's a really busted card against Mew, and just allows you to have just that bit much of an easier time against Mew. Like, fair enough, your Cramorants can actually one-hit KO their Malouetta, which is really nice. But Dynamic Tail will, of course, just get a really easy one-hit KO on the VMAX. Then we have Sableye. It says you can only use this attack if you have 10 more cards on Lost Zone, but 12 counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like. So it allows you to just spread 120 damage, but it does go through Manaphy, so you can snipe Greninjas, you can snipe, well, you need another modifier for Greninja, but you can set up Greninja for a 2-hit snipe, because obviously if you have more than 10 cards and you want to use multiple Sableye, you can do if you wish. And because it's only one energy, you can also just, manually attach for turn, then Mirage Gate somewhere else, so it's a really cool card and will definitely help you in a lot of matchups just to clear up some Pokemon. It's also worth noting if your opponent basically ever tries to, bench a bunch of Sobbles late game, they just can't because Lost Mine will just knock out 2 Sobbles in one hit. So very busted, powerful card and one to keep an eye on. Then for the new Lost Zone trainers, we have Mirage Gate, Colorless Experiment, and Lost Sweeper. Mirage Gate is kind of like what makes this deck work. It allows us to search our deck for 2 basic energy of different types. So in Giratina's case, it will be Grass and Psychic, and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So it doesn't have to be to one Pokemon. We can use this to accelerate to 2 different Giratinas, so one the bench, one the active. But most of the time, you will just be accelerating to, one Giratina, essentially, and then manually attaching, and then doing the 280. However, you do need 7 or more cards of Lost Zone, so we have effects like Abyss Seeker, Comfrey's Flower Picking, as well as Colorless Experiment and Lost Sweeper. Colorless Experiment allows us to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put 3 into your hand and the other 2 into the Lost Zone. And then Lost Sweeper says you put another card from your hand into the Lost Zone, and then you choose either Pokemon to a card or Stadium play, either yours or your opponent's, and then put that card into the Lost Zone. So you have to think of Lost Sweeper as sort of a tool scrapper, sort of a field blower, I guess, kind of type of card that was really good. But you are putting 2 cards into the Lost Zone. That's kind of like what's important to remember about Lost Sweeper. So going into the first list, we have like the most straightforward build of Giratina. One thing I will say about this list is I personally don't like the fact that it's running a 2-2 Giratina line. I think that's a little bit sketchy if you start pricing them. I would definitely recommend going to a 3-3 line. But a 2-2 line obviously is what this person felt was satisfactory. I personally don't agree with it, but especially because you're only running one other attacker, which is Cramorant. But I could be wrong, I guess. But this person is playing just exactly what you'd expect from these Giratina lists. It's playing 4 Comfrey, 1 Cramorant, and then the deck engine of choice for this one is 2 Crobat. Crobat is preferably not ideal because, Path to the Peak exists, and Crobat is a liability if there ever was one. Opponent can just boss it out with a Pikachu or like a Palkia and just want to kill Crobat for some easy prize cards. So I wouldn't recommend the Crobat variant, to be honest. But I guess if you're going turbo, you're going fast, and then you just start one killing them, then Crobat is not so much of a liability. But let me know what you think if Crobat's too much of a problem to be in play. But yeah, overall fairly straightforward list. Nothing crazy going on in the trainers. 4 Mirage Gate is to be expected. 1 Lost Zone Sweeper is really cool. 4 Scoop Up Net, 1 Air Balloon. So this person is essentially saying, right, I'm going to put myself on a timer. Either I burn through all my nets and I get all my Comfreys set up properly, or, my opponent just oversweeps first and they just win. So not running a high counter switch in Air Balloon does mean that you're more limited, I think, in options. But I do like the inclusion of the 4 Scoop Up Net just to allow you to have more maneuverability, should say, with Cramorant as well as Comfrey. There's also 4 Cross Switcher, which you don't see a lot in Giratina decks. Personally, I think it's worth playing this exclusively with Enteion. Don't know why I'm voice broke there. But we do have Comfrey at least, so there is, more ways of finding Cross Switcher. And I suppose we do have Crobat, so at least there's that. 1 Avery, 1 Boss. Avery obviously here to do with Palkia, but not 100% sure why we need 1 Avery and 1 Boss. I think maybe -1 Avery plus 1 Boss, because other than that, we are only playing 6 supporters in this deck, so pretty light on that count. Moving on, we have potentially, yep, I'm going to be biased here and say this is my favorite version of a list. It's playing a 1-1 Leafeon line, and it's also playing 3-3 Giratina. So Leafeon For those of you who don't remember what Leafeon V does, it says, once in your turn you may search your deck for grass energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. If you do, your turn ends. So this is just absolutely perfect for going first, because it means if you manually attach a Psychic Energy or Grass Energy, then you use Leafeon V's ability to search your deck for Grass or a Psychic. Then of course next turn you can just manually attach a third energy, and then immediately do 280 and knock out whatever they have going. So very, very strong effect. There's also the whole dealio that this list is playing high switch air balloon count. So if you really want to, after you've done that play, you can then, of course, just switch into Comfrey and start building up towards Mirage Gate, which you play a 4 of. To pull this off, of course, we do have 4 Battle VIP Pass, which is in a lot of these lists. So these players are obviously finding these easy enough, right enough. Comfrey does allow you to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and take 1. So at the very least, we do have that kind of synergy. 1 training court as well, just to make use of energy that we might potentially discard with Quick Ball and Ultra Ball. I personally don't like training court because I think it helps out Palkia and stuff too much, or Mew. So I would recommend maybe another stadium of choice, maybe the new Lost Zone Stadium. But other than that, pretty straightforward list, and definitely want to be wanting to try out at least. So this one is pretty interesting. It's kind of like a hybrid of the other variants that we've seen, but at the same time, we're playing Bennett, the one that's putting itself in Lost Zone to retrieve a supporter. We're also playing a little bit more variety in terms of trainers as well, playing the Hisuian Heavy Ball. Also, only 3 copies of Mirage Gate, I think, is a little bit sketch. I would rather just play 1 less Lost Sweeper or such, and then +1 Mirage Gate, anything for 4 Mirage Gate, basically, because it's very crucial that you find all 4 copies probably at some point in the game. So I do definitely recommend that going up to 4 copies if you're thinking about trying this list out. But super cool nonetheless. This is definitely like the spiciest variant because Drapion obviously can one-hit KO Mew. There's Sableye well in here, which you don't always see in Giratina, to allow you to do some massive sweeping. So definitely like this list. It does have some spicy potential, but again, playing 2 training court, a little bit sketch to me, but still a really cool list overall. And we have the Arceus Giratina list. I'm personally not so sold on this version because you only have 8 basic energy. And then assuming you've used 1 for Arceus, then that's 7. And then, of course, we then have to send 2 energy from our Pokemon to the Lost Zone. Something worth noting, I think it's really cool, is Giratina doesn't specify basic energy. So we can actually send double turbo, I think, to the Lost Zone, which is really cool. So we do have that at least. We also have a Barrel Engine because there's just like no room for Inteleon in these decks. But there's also Howlucha, which is pretty neat. So Howlucha will obviously let you just hit that bit harder, I guess. 1 Path to the Peak, 1 Rose Tower. Rose Tower is interesting, to be honest, because I don't think you would ever have a really, really small hand, especially not with Barrel. But yeah, interesting. Rose Tower is definitely an interesting one. I do like the 2 choice belt Turbo Balloon. There's like snippets of each of these lists that I really like. But yeah, 2 choice belt Turbo Balloon I do agree with. So 1 Howlucha. This person obviously wants to KO a Mew, so that's something to bear in mind, is that Mew will still be around even when this deck comes out. So we do have to worry about that, I guess. Also playing 2 Adventurous Discovery is pretty spicy, so we're finding ways to just set up loads of Pokemon in the early game, as well as meaning we can like commit our resources to finding Barrel and Howlucha, for example, and not just our Vs with Ultra Balls and Quick Balls. So I think it's a pretty cool list. I just don't have so much faith in the Arceus version of this deck. I just think the Comfrey variant is a little bit better, but obviously that's my own speculation. This last list is a pretty cool one. It's the Giratina Pikachu list. I'm honestly not 100% sure if this is like really worth it, but it is pretty cool, to be honest. It is kind of like saying, right, no Palkia, no Palkia. You already want to kill Palkia with Giratina, and this person, rather than having choice battle, has just been like, yeah, well, I want to have a good matchup against basic decks, a good matchup against Palkia with Pikachu. I think it's asking too much, to be honest. I think at some points with the Mirage Gate, you are asking for way too much, but it is worth noting that we have Flying Pikachu as an option, and if this ends up being successful, it could probably prove that many other V-Stars, especially ones like Lucario, which don't see as much success, could end up being more successful. So that's why I've like included this list. I don't think it will be super competitive by any stretch of imagination, but I do think it will be pretty cool. So it's worth noting this list is playing 2 boss. So 2 bosses orders, like, thank God. I think the previous list was playing 3 boss. Yeah, 3 boss. So this one was playing 3 boss because you're playing Giratina Arceus, so like you can easily find them with Starbirth. This is playing 2-1, so I do like the high counter boss in Giratina. So yeah, I think that will do. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the list. Which of the 5 is your favorite? I'm personally a fan of Leafeon. I think it's the best way to play the deck. But let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.